It's nice to meet you, Wayne. I haven't seen you for about 4 years. So we have been talking on the phone because I was very interested about what you've been doing after the prison when the last time I saw you. But would you mind if I put some questions to you?
Not at all.
And we'll just see what's been happening in the last 4 years. Now, the first question I'd love to ask you is about yourself. What was you like before you actually went into prison? What was your life about?
Well, I was married for, what was it, about 9 years, nearly 10 years, and relationship broke up because me and my partner drifted apart in what we wanted in life and where we wanted to be, and we had children. We had 2, a boy and a girl. Not to say our lives started going wrong, we sort of drifted apart, we didn't get on, we had a bad breakup, and my partner moved away with the children, and haven't seen them for 8 years. But after me and my partner split up, my life changed. From being nice and comfortable and relaxed and settled and having everything, I started going on a downward spiral. So I was in and out of jobs, drinking got worse again, and eventually I ended up with money problems, lost the place that I was living at, got settlement from the divorce, blew all that money, which was 15,000, blew it in a matter of about a year and a half, 2 years. And like I said, my life got progressively worse. I turned back to the way I used to be when I was a teenager, which was rough and unruly. Out all the time, drinking, started a little bit of fighting every now and then because I was getting myself into predicaments through my drink. And I had bust up with me parents, mainly my dad, because me and my dad have always been at loggerheads, and I eventually moved away after being accused of something to do with a lad I was looking after, because his mother accused me of feeding him alcohol and he wasn't allowed to have alcohol. And me and my dad had a big bust up over that, and I eventually decided I'd had enough of where I was and decided to up off and move. So I just picked the tent up and went and started mixing with the wrong people. And when I started mixing with the wrong people, I then ended up in a big spot of bother, which I paid for with some time behind bars.
So how long was your sentence for?
It was an 8-year sentence, of which I've done 4 years. And it's 4 years of my life that was wasted. It took freedom away from me. I lost a lot, but I also gained a few things out of it. Gave me time to reflect on my life, readjust myself, and get myself sorted again.
Okay, so that was the first time you've ever been in prison?
Very first time. Only the once, but I had been in trouble a few times previous for small minor things like common assault, and a little bit of shoplifting, and they were only cautions, but the other one was a nice long sentence.
And that's actually where I met you on the induction. So when you went into prison and you saw what was happening on the induction wing, you know, what did you see? What was it you saw was happening?
It reminded me a bit of a care home, and I'll be honest with you. Standing up on the balcony bit, looking down from the landing down to the bottom bit, when you looked at everyone, you could see there were people there with issues and problems, and it did look like a care home. It looked like a learning difficulties or challenging behaviour home. People with problems, and you could see that a lot of people had issues and were frustrated. Because and you did notice that there were a lot of people with hidden disabilities.
So when you saw what was happening, you then, you know, you asked if you wanted to come on board and you wanted to help. What was it then that you saw that you just wanted to sort of get involved in?
I wanted to be able to help other people that were in the position where they couldn't control what they were doing because everything was steered. You were told what to do, when to do.
Yeah.
And people with problems like dyslexia and all that,
Yeah.
they got frustrated more than anyone else because they weren't being given enough attention and taught the right way and have things explained to them properly. And as I've been a carer previously, to me it seemed it was something I could do to help someone else again, even though I was in the same sort of position as them, but not.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't got anything like dyslexia and that, but I knew where they were coming from, so I had an understanding. And if you've got an understanding, and it was rewarding for me to be able to help other people to try and better themselves and to be understood rather than ignored.
Now you actually also came on to the 703 petal course. What made you want to sort of come onto that course, which I was teaching in the prison?
Well, there's like when you was talking to us about it, you said there's different styles of learning and ways of teaching, and to me that sounded interesting to be able to look at other alternatives from the way that I was taught at school. So if there's different ways, it's nice to be able to have flexibility. And that way, if you're working with someone who's got a difficulty, it may not be a straightforward approach, it might be a completely different approach and a different way with like the different acetates for like the reading and that. And like you said with the toothpaste and the sand and all that. Different ways to try and help people to understand so they can better themselves and be understood rather than be ignored.
So you enjoyed the course?
I enjoyed the course very much.
What was it that it was enjoying for you?
The enjoying bit was having a nice teacher like yourself.
Thank you.
You never stopped talking to us.
Oh no.
But you were always, you made it entertaining and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Everyone that done the course enjoyed it.
I think
Everyone.
what was really amazing was the fact that 10 started, 10 finished and 10 passed. And I do know that there was like being bets on through Head of Learning Skills.
As to how many people would have.
How many would have dropped out, you know, a few weeks on, and everybody was still shocked that still 10 was there. Halfway through they said, well, they must have now been 6 or 7 left, and yet we still had 10. And I know when the assessors, Advice UK, when they looked at the work, they couldn't tell that 5 had hidden disabilities and 5 didn't. So here we had 10 people, and I think that was the really great joy of bringing the 10 together and actually working as one, so that teachers who really had no idea about hidden disability were going to be able to see how to work with people with disabilities and what needed. So you didn't actually come to the end of the course because you had to go over to Wayland. So that's when I started visiting you in Wayland, and you had to do your micro teach.
Yes, I've done my micro teach at Wayland.
And how was that?
It was a bit nervy at first.
Okay.
But once you got into it and ignored the fact that you was being watched and sort of judged on what you was doing, it was fine. But I did have a little set to in the classroom because there was one of the lads there who volunteered to sit in so I could get through the micro teach. He got up and stormed off out of the room, which I did ignore. I left him to it, and it wasn't until later that we found out that he actually had problems with reading and writing.
Okay.
And it was to do with a writing bit that was
Yeah.
when he was doing a little
Yeah.
part.
So when afterwards did you go?
I spoke to him
Okay.
afterwards after he'd done the teach, and
Yeah.
that was when he turned round to me and said, I can't read and write. And spoke with him and said, if you need any help, my cell door's always open.
Okay, good.
And he did come and see me a couple of times
Yeah.
to write him a couple of letters, but
Yeah.
I then ended up moving prisons again.
You did move to prison. Okay. So you then had your first sort of teaching experience with St Giles's Trust, and the course you were doing was Information and Guidance.
Yeah, MVQ level 3.
Okay. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that course and what you was actually doing with?
I was co-facilitating with the tutor,
Right.
so I was there to help support all the students, and if they had problems with understanding it, I would be there to help them, and also to help those who had dyslexia and other problems. And there was quite a few on the courses of the 4 or 5 courses that I've done.
Right.
And out of that, there was a high percentage of them. I'd say maybe 30%, give or take. Maybe a bit less, but
Yeah.
I know on the last course there was, out of 8 people,
Right.
there were 3 people.
Right.
2 were, well, one was very severely dyslexic,
Okay.
the other one was dyslexic, and the other one had ADHD,
Right.
and I also believe he was slightly dyslexic, but he wouldn't admit to it.
Okay. Yeah.
And also on that course, I met someone who was dyslexic who hadn't actually told us that she was dyslexic.
Right.
She tried to hide it,
Which we did. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
she did, and when we spoke to her, she admitted to it,
Yeah.
and eventually I ended up leaving
Right. Okay.
because I was having a relationship with her.
Okay. Alright. Now, do you think the teaching that you were given, did that help her to?
It helped
Yeah.
her to get on, and also it helped me to help all the others that had their problems, because I could sit down with them and look at what they were doing and try and find a way for them to make it easier for themselves to understand what they were doing. And it was only through doing the Petals course that I learned that there were different ways to help people with hidden disabilities
Right.
to be able to do the work without getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And all I can say is, I'm glad you took me on to do the course.
Well, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for inviting us to your home. I really thank you for the last 4 years, because you know you wrote such beautiful letters to me when I was ill. They did give me so much great joy.
I did say I'd keep in touch.
You did, and I really appreciate and the help that you've given, and the fact that we've come here today to talk to you. I would like to say thank you very much. Thank you.
I've just got to say the same back, because without you I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Thank you.